Warning, the new financial system is here, and most people are not ready. In today's video, I'm going to break down how Jerome Powell being subpoenaed to court is much deeper than we actually think. I'm going to break down my own opinion, do your own research. I'm only ever going to share with you with authenticity exactly what I'm doing. My goal is to empower people to develop financial literacy. We don't need stimulus checks. We need financial literacy. If you give $1 million to every person in society, it'll end up in the same 1%'s hands. Why? Financial literacy. We don't need stimulus, we need literacy. Jim Rohn. Here's the key factor, is that our attention span is like 15 seconds. And most people won't make it past 30 seconds on this video. So if you did, you're probably the generational shifter in your family, just like I am. So I want to teach you and educate you what money actually is. Before 1907, listen to me, this is really important. Money was rooted in reality. Gold, silver, land, your labor was traded for reality. If you labored, you got paid in equipment, land, gold, silver. We owned stuff. But after 1913, our money became completely detached from reality. We got indoctrinated into a monetary debt-based system, where the only way for the economy to expand is through debt expansion. Now, because we don't understand and we're not taught at school what money is, and that we're taught to trade time for money, and the only way to make more money is to give up more time, and that money we're paid in is actually debt. When we put our debt in the bank, they bank it up, they dam it up, and then they lend it out to make it current. Banks make money in three ways: interest income, fee income, and capital markets income. So they take our money, which is debt, and they monetize that debt. It's a Ponzi scheme. It happens over and over and over again. Well, the issue was this worked until it didn't. Our grandparents got destroyed in the Great Depression, and that created fear. Then we went into World War II, and then the middle class. Middle class is a new concept, was engineered. The middle class was developed because our grandparents went through the Great Depression and they were scared. They didn't want to go through that again. They didn't want to lose everything. So it was packaged up in monetizing or subsidizing mortgages, 30-year mortgages, the picket fence, pensions, safety. So they traded safety for monetary enslavement. They would go to a bank, and instead of reality of owning their home, they would mortgage their home and buy a home they couldn't afford within the current reality, taking away from their future self, which is what we all do. So they'd borrow and buy a home that they can't afford because they can afford the payment, not knowing that interest is taken away from their future self, because the monetary system and the feds can print money and they deflate our dollar. So our dollar is losing value. We're monetizing our debt with interest. And so we're getting poor every single year. But we're not taught that. So this worked back then. You could have one income, have a beautiful home, a car, you can go on vacation, and you could live a really good life. Going to school made sense. You go to school, you get an education, you get a $30,000 a year job, and you could live a good life. Well, in 1971, everything changed. I promise I'll get to a current reality and what's happening with the banking system, because we're going back to 1907, pre-1907. So 1971, we detached from the gold standard, which made our money fake, fiat. That's when it really got ugly. From 1971 to today, the wealth gap has become massive. So your productivity has gone up, but your income has not gone up with productivity. But the wealth gap has become much larger. So my parents bought their house in 1973 for $25,000. It is now worth $400,000. Now, people think that's growth. That's not growth. This is where you're indoctrinated. That is devaluation of their currency. Here's why. Because if they sold that house, they could only move into the same neighborhood. They didn't grow. Their value of their dollar went down. So now here we are in 2026, 120% debt to income ratio, more debt than we have income. A US dollar has collapsed 96 to 97%, which is fake. It's fake fiat money. It's monopoly money. Just go play the game Monopoly, guys. It's right in front of our face. Over 1 billion people have played Monopoly. But then why isn't everybody millionaires? Monopoly gave us the secret. Who wins Monopoly? The person who owns all the assets. So we're going back to pre-1907. Ownership. That's why gold, silver is at an all-time high. That's why things like Bitcoin, which are ownership outside the central bank, starting to gain traction. That's why Trump came back and ran as a Bitcoin president, created a sovereign wealth fund. He created the Genius Act, which is Stablecoin Act, which is important. And what's important to understand, we're in 2026, which is a great mutation. And after February, guys, Mark my word, come back to this video, save it. Any brokerage, any financial person, financial bank, financial company is not doing good works is going to get exposed. What's done in darkness comes to light. So you don't have to do anything. You don't have to go protest. You got to get your shit together. So me, you, the seeds we planted are coming to fruition in 2026. You don't have to go out and argue. You're going to watch it come to fruition, to include you. So what's going to happen is you're going to see more changes in 2026 to 2030, specifically 2026 with the Clarity Act, where banks now that told you crypto's a fraud are going to come into crypto, and you're going to be like, wait a minute. You told me it was a fraud. You told me not to get into Bitcoin. You told me XRP was a scam. They're going to now be saying, hey, Mrs. Jones, how about you allocate 4% into Bitcoin? Now, why would they do that if they said it was a fraud before? Because they get paid under assets under management. It's either fee or assets under management. And if Bitcoin grows 50% every year, wouldn't you want to allocate Mrs. Jones, the baby boomer? She has the largest amount of wealth in your bank, about 4%, because if they get paid under assets under management, it grows 50% every year. It's going to crush every single investment that she has in her portfolio, and you're going to have more assets under management. Because how do banks make money? Interest income, fee income, and capital markets income. The more money they have, the more they can lend. They teach us to save, and they take our savings and they make money. Okay, so here's where we're going. We're going into a decentralized system where traditional finance is going to mix with decentralized finance. You're going to be in the driver's seat. You're going to be able to lend out your money. You're going to be able to stake and make money. Some of you are paying attention. You're investing in the rails of the new infrastructure, the financial. Imagine them putting railroad tracks down. You could own the railroad tracks. You could figure out what cars are going to go across that railroad track. That's your job, is to figure out which ones. I figured out what I think is going to happen, and I'm going to tell you what I think is going to happen. But I want to empower you to do your research. Stop with blind leadership. Okay, so you need a defensive and offensive strategy. My defensive strategy is things like XRP, Bitcoin, Solana, WLFI, XLM, VeChain. I have many others, but I'm going to consolidate up into the top four. It'll be XRP number 1, Bitcoin number 2, WLFI number 3, Solana number 4. Those will be my top four. I'm in my zone of competency, and I'm going to accumulate as much as I can. That's my zone of competency. Do your research. That's offensive. For stocks, ABTC and XXI. Bitcoin treasuries. Defensive, that's offensive. Everybody's in offensive. They don't teach you the defensive. Defensive is insurance, cash value life insurance, dollar cost averaging into silver, just started getting into copper. And I'm starting to stack Berkshire every week, which is going to be my stability, longevity. So Berkshire, insurance, copper, and silver. That's what feels good to me. And Bitcoin, I'll put in that category too, because I see it as digital gold. Okay, so when my offense and my capital DR strategy, okay, let's go back. Capital DR is cash flow into appreciating assets. That's offense. Defense is P, protection. And then we leverage when everybody's running from the fire. We go into the fire and we buy people's fear because everything cycles. You're in a vertical strategy. I'm in a horizontal strategy, and we feed an ecosystem. We're not waiting for price predictions and saviors. So when everybody comes rushing in when the prices are going up, we're selling people our profits, or we're taking profits. So every time I get income, it's debt. I put first 10% into cash generating dividends, which creates more cash flow. I created cash generating businesses and dividends. The dividends pay me, and my businesses pay me outside of debts and non-negotiable. I transfer into A, which are assets. I gave you my assets. When those assets appreciate, I'm not married to them. Bitcoin, we're never going to touch. We'll just keep that out of that category. Put it in protection and off defense. When they appreciate, I pull profits on the way up, and I put it into P, protection, defense, life insurance. I'm going to get more silver. I'm going to get more copper. I'm going to get more Berkshire. Then I wait patiently because there will be a market collapse. Told everybody not to leverage their crypto, not to let anybody manage your crypto, and 10/10/2025 happened, and everybody called me like, oh my God, what happened? Like I told you, don't leverage your crypto. So there'll be another 10/10/2025. It comes collapsing down. So I go L, leverage my defensive side for my insurance, and I go back into the market and buy everybody's fear, and I multiply my assets. And then I follow the same cycle, which is de-risk, 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 de-risk. So my goal is to be pre-1907 and I have real estate for tax liabilities. I have real estate, my offensive strategy, digital assets. Bitcoin is my gold, silver, copper, insurance, real estate for tax liabilities, my LLC for protection of assets, my trust to house all of it. So you don't need the next best crypto. You need a system. This is how winning is done. We're going back pre-1907, where the people who own the equipment, the land, and monetary systems that are based in reality are going to win. You got to prepare, guys. Warriors, rise. Get your shit together. Love you guys.